We got a lot of new coaches and a lot of fans expecting new results. We're going to tell you the most likely that'll happen and the most likely that it won't here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Every doggone day, that's what it is. Your team here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. Got my brother from another mother, David Harrison, in from Locked On Commanders and Locked On Squad Show in today, as we always do on a Wednesday. And I'm going to let you know where we're going in just a second, but I'm glad you're here. And you can find us wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen. Make sure you tap into that location each and every day for Locked On NFL. Here's where we're going to end up. Worst spot for a new coach to be. If y'all listen to this show, that ain't going to be real hard at all. And David probably going to start smiling when I say it because he might already know exactly where I'm going. All right, right smack in the middle of it, we're going to talk about new coaches who need the most patience. The record might not change, but the infrastructure might. And if it does, will you be patient to understand it and view it? New York Jets. We'll talk to y'all in just a second. But first, we're going to start out at best with best new coaches and best situation. And I have to be fully transparent here, David. I am biased. I do cover the Jaguars. I think I know the depths of that situation, the purgatory, the length of all of that stuff the Jags have been through. I really do think that they got a lot of blue sky. But for the sake of this show, I always kind of pull that back. But I am going to mention that I got another team, Dave. First of all, I want you to say something before I get to this clip, because once we start, we ain't going to stop. David, welcome in. Thanks for what you did too at the lead meetings, man, making that contribution. You saw it firsthand with Washington. First of all, tell me how that journey was. If you can put that in about 30 seconds, what was the journey like going from watching Washington be a dumpster fire to 1 year later watching them totally change the way the franchise was thought to be with a new coach and new ownership?
Yeah, fun. I mean, that's the most simple way to put it, man. It was just fun from the moment that Adam Peters was hired to the first time we got to talk to Adam as the GM to the moment Dan Quinn was hired. And, you know, everybody rewind a year ago, that hire was not celebrated. That hire, a lot of people were like, what? Dan Quinn? Yep. For real? And then we get to see him in the theater, and I'm sitting there in the theater, and this man's talking. I'm like, bro, like, okay, let's go. Like, let's do this, coach. You know what I mean? Let's do this, coach. Had the same feeling about Eric Bieniemy. Said the same thing about Eric Bieniemy that I said about Dan Quinn. I said, okay, like, I love the message. Let's see what the action looks like. Rookie minicamp, OTAs, mandatory minicamp, training camp, it all made sense. That's where the rubber meets the road, is the message has to match the actions. This organization, the action is matching the words. They're talking the talk and walking the walk. And that's, I mean, it sounds simple, man, but that's what it takes.
And it sounds about right, too. So as these teams embark on this new journey, everybody's optimistic. I want you to hear what Locked On Bears host Lauren Cox, my homeboy, said about Ben Johnson. And then you'll hear from a player that talks about Ben Johnson's first meeting with the players.
Ben Johnson addressed the Chicago Bears as a team in person for the first time this week. And he set the tone, raising expectations for success early and often. Ben Johnson's already giving Caleb and the quarterbacks an early test just in their first week of having off-season workouts together. Because the Bears off-season program began this week, and all it is for now is just like workouts and weightlifting. And he gave his sort of his first big team speech about what he wants the team to do, what he sees the expectations as, how he wants to approach this upcoming season. And Jalen Johnson was able to give us some peeks behind the curtain as far as some of the stuff Ben Johnson said and how it was received among players in the room.
But I think overall just setting the tone for what we want to do this year and really just having a sense of urgency right now, not just waiting and going through a process and figuring out what we're going to do, but establishing who we are right now and then working towards that goal. Really just the mindset of winning and winning right now and winning a certain type of way too. I think just having that dominating mentality is something that I took from the team meeting, and it starts now. It starts with the work that we put in. It starts with gelling and being cohesive and understanding what they're going to be asking from us, especially on defense, just understanding the mentality, understanding the mindset and identity that we're going to establish.
If they're, I have to say this: the Jaguars fan base, they were torn. At first, it was all about Ben Johnson, and then it was all about Liam Cohen. But the things that Ben Johnson has said are the things that everyone thought he was about, and the moves that they've made are moves that all the Jaguar fans wanted. So I think, for me, taking the Jaguars part out of it, Ben Johnson, in my opinion, is set up for success. It's the best situation, and early on, the moves look just like what he says. And I think those things are very, very important, that it looks so far exactly like the things that he talks about.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, when you have a head coach and a general manager paint a picture to you of what this team is supposed to look like, and then the moves match what that picture looks like or is supposed to look like, that's how you know you're at least on the right path, right? Nothing guarantees success, but you at least know you're on the right path. The thing about the Chicago Bears, because I like everything they've done, you know what I mean? Look, they brought in receiver Olamide Zaccheaus. Like last year, you had Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. So you had DJ Moore, who's always wanted to be that true blue number one. Keenan Allen, who was that franchise face for a long time. Rome Odunze, the first-round draft pick, who's trying to establish his mark. Like you got three dudes basically all trying to be the man. You can't have three the men. You know what I'm saying? Well, now you got DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, who could probably survive as a 1 and 1A. And you got Olamide Zaccheaus, who knows how to be a veteran, knows how to be a pro, knows how to be a role player, is not going to try to bite the spotlight from DJ Moore or any of those other guys, but is going to have games, if you're a Bears fan, where he's going to show up and you're like, man, this OZ dude is good. You know what I mean? So you like that. You like the overhaul on the offensive line. You got to see how they gel and come together as a 5-man unit, but at least on paper, you like the effort they did in front of Caleb Williams. The only question I have about the Chicago Bears is the management of the team. Because I've always been of the type of person says the head coach's job is to run the team, not to game plan the offense, not to game plan the defense, not to call half the game. Because while you're calling half the game, you're not paying full attention to the other half of the game.
Right.
So if you're going to have that kind of a coach, which Ben Johnson is going to be, he's going to game plan his offense. He's going to run his offense, which means on game day, he's going to be focused on the offense. He doesn't have time to worry about the special teams. He doesn't have time to worry about the defense as much as a head coach like a Dan Quinn, who doesn't run either side of the ball. You need another head coach. Like, that's the bottom line truth. You have to have another head coach. So they go out and they get Dennis Allen on defense. That's why I'm like, okay, this might be able to work. Dennis Allen knows what he's doing over there. He doesn't need Ben Johnson to hold his hand. If he gets into the mud, he's not going to need a head coach to come hold his hand and say, okay, buddy, let's get through the mud together. He's been there. He's done that. He knows what he's doing. So that's why I have confidence in this, right? Because I go back to, I covered a Super Bowl winning team that had that same model. Bruce Arians ran his offense. Granted, he was letting a little bit off of it, but he basically ran his offense, and he let Todd Bowles run his defense. You basically had two head coaches, one head coach of the offense, one head coach of the defense, all that kind of stuff. And it worked because Todd Bowles knew what he was doing. Now you look at where Liam Cohen is coming from. It's the same type of system. Todd Bowles runs his defense. He is his own defensive coordinator. He needs an offensive coordinator that just handles his business. That's why Byron Leftwich didn't work, because Byron Leftwich couldn't do that. That's why Liam Cohen did work. That's why he worked out in Tampa with that team, because he had the ability to do that. So him coming into Jacksonville, you already know this is a tested coach who, he's a first-time head coach, but he's been through the mud. He's been through the weeds. Ben Johnson has not had to do that. Ben Johnson has always had a Dan Campbell there when we need the fireworks, when we need the intensity, when we need the spitter to yell at the guys and rally the troops. Ben Johnson has always had Dan Campbell. So my question is going to come in when DJ Moore gets frustrated, when Caleb Williams is flustered, when the offensive line is not doing well. Is Ben Johnson going to be able to rally the troops?
Yep.
Because let's be honest, bro. Ben Johnson weird. That's a weird man. All right. That's a weird man. And when you're talking about ballers, they don't all take to that style of guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now, listen, I'll go back to the Buccaneers. Todd Bowles, who you see in the media, is not who Todd Bowles is to the players. Absolutely. Like, the players see a totally different Todd Bowles. You know what I mean? So maybe that's just Ben Johnson's forward-facing, front. Maybe behind the scenes, he is more of a rallier. I don't know that. But I'm just saying, when it comes to the Bears, I get why they're the team that a lot of people pick. That's just where I have questions is when the going gets tough, is Ben Johnson going to be tough enough to get them going?
Right. So just full transparency here. Jacksonville wasn't the only team that seemingly wanted Ben Johnson. Washington wanted him the year before, and some weird stuff kind of happened. They were talking about a plane.
And I was saying the same stuff last offseason.
Yeah, a plane doing a U-turn and all of this stuff, all kinds of foolishness. But I will tell you this, the part about him and Dennis Allen, I resonate with it because I was a barber for 34 years, and this is the barbershop. There's nothing like going to another barber that has 10, 12 years of experience that maybe used to work beside the guy or something, and sitting down in that chair and telling him what you want as a barber. Because you know why? One, you trust him. Two, you speak a different language. You cut across the field. You say a whole bunch of things that you can't say to clients that only barbers know, that you can get exactly what you want. Close your eyes, go to sleep, wake up, don't even need to look in the mirror. You walk out of the door. That there's something about somebody that has done the things that you have done before that can understand your workflow. All right. Me and David understand each other's workflow a whole bunch. And right now we're going to get to the Jets and the team that I believe where the new coaches need the most patience. That ain't because I think it's not going to go well. I just think it might be going well and Jets fans might not recognize it. I'll talk to you about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, you can join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, and you'll get $250 in bonus bets if you win. I love how FanDuel makes it betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. It's all about the NBA on FanDuel. We are rolling along here, talking about new coaches on Locked On NFL. David Harrison along with me, the host, Tony Wiggins. All right, Dave, July 3rd, 1969. You know what that is?
No.
That's my birthday.
That's when this old
dude, a night before Independence Day, was born. And see this gray on my face? All right, So the Jets, last time they won a Super Bowl was January 12th, 1969, which means that was 7 months before I was born. That's the last time the Jets won. But here's something I'm going to give the Jets fans credit about. Fans, not the team. The Jets fans have football self-esteem that won't suggest that they haven't won anything in 56 years. In fact, they act like they win all the time. And that's a very nice characteristic to have, especially when you don't win at all. But here's what happens. What happens when you start getting better, but you act like you win all the time, but you want the winning to reflect what you look like, but it's not coming fast enough. Sometimes I think the zest for that stuff, and I know I'm a Jaguar fan, it makes you a little bit impatient. And I think the Jets are going to have to be very, very patient with their coach, Aaron Glenn. And here's John Butchko to talk about where there may not be alignment in the coach and the GM. How do the Jets survive it?
Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji come from two different backgrounds. So how do they navigate a disagreement in the draft room? Glenn comes from Detroit. Muji comes from Denver. And these two teams have kind of approached the draft differently through the years, particularly at the quarterback position. The first thing I would say is I would not necessarily assume that Glenn is coming in and wants to do everything the exact same way Detroit did. And I don't think Muji is going to come in and try and do everything the exact same way Denver did. At the end of the day, you have to remember that while they were there, and while I'm sure they took I'm sure they agreed with some of the things their team was doing, they probably disagreed with some of the things that their team was doing also. I'm sure there were aspects of what the way the Lions built their team that Glenn maybe wasn't on board with. I'm sure Denver, Muji was not the guy making the final call in Denver, although he may have been instrumental behind scouting Bo Nix. So I'm sure there are things that the Broncos did that Muji disagreed with. And whenever you're talking about like one draft class, it's always dangerous to read too much into it, because if the board had shaken out a different way for Detroit in 2021, maybe they would have made a different pick. If Bo Nix wasn't available last year, if Bo Nix had gone before Denver picked, they may not have drafted a quarterback. So a couple caveats there.
Interesting points by Butch Cove when talking about the Jets. The one thing I will say is this. When you take over something new, the easiest thing to do is just spray paint over everything and just paint it and make it look, fake it till you make it, right? Or you can do the hard part. You can rip it down to the studs and you can replace those bad pipes and those bad boards. I think Aaron Glenn needs to replace those bad pipes, those bad boards, and get the stink off the organization from the inside out. But he might need more patience than the fans are willing to give him, David.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I have this analogy, and I got to deliver it right or else it's not going to make any sense. So let's see if I can do this. So NFL fan bases are like us human beings in a social economic environment. And what I mean by that is this. There are some really happy rich people out there, but there are also some really happy poor people out there. Now, you know who the really happy poor people are? The really happy poor people are the poor people who have always been poor. They're not the new people who are poor. The people who are newly poor are miserable because they've been rich before. At the same time, Super Bowl championships are like fat paychecks. The further away you get from that fat paycheck, the further away it feels like it's something that you just get, right? Paychecks you're supposed to earn every week, every 2 weeks, every month, right? The New York Jets fan base right now is basically like they had a rich uncle they once heard about named Joe Namath, right? And now they're like, so most Jets fans have been poor their whole lives when we talk about this NFL analogy. But they heard of this family member who had money once, and they want to know why they don't get none of that money. That's why they're a little bit more miserable. Now you look at the Detroit Lions fan base, they've been poor since the day they put on their first Hawaiian blue or Honolulu blue t-shirt, right? They know what it's like to live that struggle. So when they get a little bit of money, they get a little bit of division championship, they get a little bit of playoff hype, they get a little bit of Super Bowl hope, they're loving it. They love life. You know what I mean? But now you look at the New England Patriots. They're miserable. New England Patriots fans are miserable.
Because they got a ride coach. Because they got a fly coach right now, right?
Yeah. But they've been living in the penthouse. They've been living in mansions in Malibu and in Beverly Hills, all that stuff for 2.5 decades. And now all of a sudden, they're right here down in the mud with everybody else trying to scrap for everything they can get. They are miserable. So do the Jets need patience? Yes. The Patriots need patience.
Oh, here we go.
Because Mike Vrabel, what is Mike Vrabel, Wig? When Mike Vrabel got hired, what was Mike Vrabel? He's the old school Pat. He knows how it was done in the beginning. He's the guy that was there early days with Brady. He's going to restore the shine. He's going to bring back. That's a whole lot of expectation on a dude that is inheriting a not very good team. Your number one receiver is Stephon Diggs, who is not a team player. Your quarterback is a young man who has some tools, okay? And I know that a lot of people in the national media specifically tried to make him out to be a little bit more effective than he really was, and I think that's unfair. But he's not Superman. No quarterback is Superman, and nobody should be expected to be Superman. They've got to draft really, really well. They've got to figure out how they're going to build an offense around this quarterback, because if you go the route of Justin Herbert, where you start losing pieces around this quarterback and think he's just going to elevate you, you're just going to ruin a first-round draft pick. And I think that they're going to return to their days of defense. You see what they did this offseason, adding a whole lot of defensive players, Harold Landry, Carlton Davis, guys who are dogs, guys who are physical, guys who are going to go down fighting and swinging. So Mike Vrabel is already in the process of reinstating some of this old Patriots luster, but Pat's fans and Robert Kraft specifically need to understand this may not be a 1 or 2 year turnaround. This may take 3 to 5 years, but if you let him do his thing and you let this team get built under one vision instead of 3 new head coaches in the next 4 years, then you probably all right. Be all right. I think that, we had this talk last year when Mayo got hired. I was like, man, I just really hope this isn't what is not happening here is he's just going to be the first dude after Bill Belichick. Well, it turns out he was just the first dude after Bill Belichick. Well, this is the second dude after Bill Belichick. Problem is he comes from the Belichick tree. If the Patriots try to make Mike Vrabel be Bill Belichick, this is going to fail because Mike Vrabel's not Bill Belichick.
Mayo came from the tree, right. So if you same thing, right?
Yep. So let him do his thing, be patient, and I promise you'll get back to relevancy sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for those teams that have been rich is they tell everybody, you know who my family is, right? And the people say if you have to say that,
Yep.
then you already lost because you got to stand on your own. Ain't nothing, nobody. Mike Vrabel ain't putting a uniform on, and Teddy Bruschi and Richard Seymour ain't running out of that tunnel. You got to do it yourself. So I agree with you that the Patriot fans have to be patient. It's for different reasons than the Jets fans have to be. But one is for hunger, and the other one is for getting back to yesteryear. And I personally don't know which one of those is the most dangerous. Speaking of dangerous, y'all probably thought I was talking about the Dallas Cowboys when I say ain't won nothing but act like. Well, the Cowboys at least have won something. Last time they won was 30 years ago. Doesn't seem like that long when you think about the Jets, but that's still long when you talk about a team that is mostly associated with winning, but they haven't won in a while. So the question is what's the worst spot for a new coach to be? Well, the one I just described, and we'll talk about that in the third and final segment here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Chewy. You probably heard of Chewy. They really do have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, whether you're shopping for food, treats, or even pet health care. Chewy makes it fast, easy, and affordable. With over 100,000 products from all your favorite brands, Chewy has everything your pet needs, from food, treats, to toys, beds, and grooming. And it's not just for dogs and cats. They got supplies for birds, fish, reptiles, and small pets too. Chewy also makes it easy to manage your pet's health with prescriptions, telehealth, vet visits, and even in-person vet clinics rolling out nationwide. I'm telling you, man, you see my tattoo right here on my arm. My dog Lexi, when she was here for those 13 years, I used Chewy so she could get every single thing that she absolutely needed, because they have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Right now, you can get and save $20 off on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking the link in the description. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping by clicking the link in the description. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. All right, we're moving along, talking about coaches in new places, expecting different results. And we get to the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys, to me, they're one of the most perplexing things to talk about in professional sports, because they're run from a business perspective, they're run perfectly. And then from an attention purpose, they're run perfectly. And then from being able to draft impact players, whether it's Micah Parsons to Overshown to Bland, they seem like they do a good job because a lot of their guys get free agency contracts. They got to figure out who to pay in Dallas. But for some reason, there's these little things that I keep talking about called infrastructure. It just seems like they always get it wrong. The guys over at Locked On Cowboys are debating whether or not, with the assistant coaches, they finally got it right. Check this out.
Clayton Adams, the Clayton Adams hiring is so encouraging to me. Like, I really have a hard time expressing it. And I don't want to get everybody re-hyped in the Cowboys when they don't want to. And I feel like I've been doing that too much on Twitter. But the Clayton Adams hire is, to me, a willingness to actually move in a different direction and invest in what is important on offenses. I think, look, if again we're taking a step back to kind of take a 10,000 foot view at all this as far as the coaching hires go, I think it's incredibly encouraging that all of the coaching hires make football sense, right? They have a plan. They've talked about what their plan is to improve, and all these coaching hires kind of line up with that plan to want to improve the run game, want to improve protections, want to do something different on the defensive line.
Dallas, for me, for coaches in football, is like coaching for the Lakers and coaching for the Yankees. I don't care how successful you are. It's not going to be enough. I'm a Yankee fan. I'm a Laker fan. And I'm going to tell you something. I would be naive and I'll be lying if I told you that there wasn't a difference in playing for those organizations. When you have to cut your mustache off, when you have to conduct yourself a certain way. And I'm going to give the same grace to whoever coaches Dallas. That's just a whole different animal, and success is measured in different ways. To me, that's why I think Coach Shoddy has the hardest job, Coach Schottenheimer, than any new coach, because I think that's just a place where unless you win it all, it ain't good enough, and it'll never be somebody above you and your pay grade's fault if you're the head coach.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just being honest here, Brian Schottenheimer is a lame duck head coach before he even stepped in the building. You know what I mean?
I said all of that, and I tried to frame it a certain way. You're like, "Nah, dog. If we're being honest, he's a lame duck."
I mean, I don't know who the next head coach is going to be, but maybe they'll get Bill Belichick back from college. You know what I mean? I don't know what the Dallas Cowboys are going to do, but yeah, I wouldn't want to work for the Dallas Cowboys. You know what I mean? Look, DeMarcus Lawrence said it himself. You ain't going to win a Super Bowl in Dallas anytime soon. So, yeah, I mean, look, I don't have a lot to say here, Wig. So what I want to do is I wasted a lot of time in the first segment. I didn't tell you who I thought the best coaching situation was.
Hold on, man. Wait. Okay. Dallas don't stand a chance with you, do they? I'm just gonna get to the.
It's Brian Schottenheimer doesn't stand a chance. It's nothing against Brian. Like, this is just a bad situation. You know what I mean? This is a bad situation. Now, listen. At the same time, let me expose myself. I said something very similar about Dave Canales going to the Carolina Panthers. I said last year, made no doubt about it. The Carolina Panthers hired a coach that no other team wanted to hire. Dave Canales took a job that no other head coach candidate wanted to take. And it was not a good situation. Dave Canales, I think, did a very good job. I think if you really look at the Carolina Panthers, Dave Canales deserves a lot of credit for what he did and how he managed that situation, and actually almost kind of revived Bryce Young a little bit within that whole season. So we'll see what year 2 looks like for Dave Canales, but I think that went much better than I expected. So while I'm sitting here in April showing my butt to people and being dismissive, it's not against Brian Schottenheimer. And I really hope that if he has the ability to make the best of a bad situation, he can. But Jerry has lost his mind, and Jerry is clinging on for dear life, and Jerry's the problem. Like, Jerry's the problem.
There you go.
And until he decides to step away and let people who he hired to do a job do their job without his tampering, it's going to stay the same. That's just
totally. And you and I, and we're both veterans. It's totally circumventing the authority. It's like the commander coming down every day doing guard mount or roll call, as some people call it, and just interrupting the flight sergeant. You can't do it, man, if you expect people to listen to the flight sergeant. It just doesn't happen. Now, get to the point. We agree about that one. There was a little bit you want to talk about best new coaches and best situations. Why you going?
I'll tell you who the best.
You're going to Vegas on me.
The best new coach situation is the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yep, I knew it
1,000%. And Wig, when we were talking about this coaching carousel, what job did I tell you was the best job out there? The Las Vegas Raiders job was the best job out there. Why? Because they had no quarterback, they had good draft capital, and they had all kinds of money. Well, guess what? Pete Carroll came in, took that job, and said, "I'm gonna go get my quarterback." I'm not a super Geno Smith guy, but Geno Smith certainly not the worst starting quarterback in the National Football League. And in this draft class, I don't hate that move. He's got his draft picks. He went out and spent some money. He brought in general manager John Spytek from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's seen how to build a team from the inside out, which is why the Las Vegas Raiders are going to go draft Tedoroa McMillan. He is this year's Mike Evans, if there is one. John Spytek is going to go get his new team, Mike Evans. You know who else played with Mike Evans? Tom Brady, partial owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. He's going to go get Geno Smith, him a Mike Evans. Tom Brady, listen, this signing got joked about. I got a lot of Buccaneers fans in my Twitter feeds. I got a lot of Buccaneers media that are friends. The Las Vegas Raiders went out and signed Devin White. There's a lot of jokes cracked about the Las Vegas Raiders going out and signing Devin White. You know who knows Devin White? Tom Brady knows Devin White. John Spytek knows Devin White. Again, I'm not sitting here telling you that this is going to work, but Devin White's talent and ability was never in question. Devin White's mentality was the problem. So if Tom Brady and John Spytek are getting a reinvigorated, rededicated, refocused Devin White, that could turn out to be one of the best offseason acquisitions that nobody is talking about right now. But you look at the Las Vegas Raiders, and if you're stat scouting out there, you're going, yeah, but David, that team was one of the worst teams giving up points last year. I'll tell you right now, the reason they were one of the worst teams giving up points last year is because their offense, not because their defense. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but if you dive into it, go back and watch all the Raiders games, you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll be like, oh, it really was that offense that gave up on them points. Okay. Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, Malcolm Kuntz. Don't sleep on Malcolm Kuntz. I know you didn't hear about him last year because he was injured and missed the entire season, but make no mistake about it, that dude was supposed to be Robin to Max Crosby's Batman before he got hurt. He's healthy now. He's coming back. Don't sleep on Malcolm Kuntz. They can go out there and get another D-tackle on the NFL draft. If Devin White comes back a little bit more revived, Jeremy Chin is the perfect star-type safety in a Pete Carroll defense. They got other decent pieces out there in draft capital offensively. You go get Ted McMillan to go with Geno Smith. Raheem Mostert comes in there. You get some offensive linemen. Let me tell you something. You want to know a team that could be the next Washington Commanders? Remember, the Washington Commanders finished second in their division to a Super Bowl contender. The AFC West has the Kansas City Chiefs, clearly a Super Bowl contender because they've been in the last 3 Super Bowls. You want to know who could go to the second place in a division with the Super Bowl contender? The Las Vegas Raiders can absolutely jump the Chargers and the Broncos and win second place in the AFC West this year, only based on what they've done right now. And they still got money and they still got draft picks.
Very, very interesting that you said that. And I also think on paper they got the best coaches. I mean, 3 of them have won Super Bowls. Peyton, Sean Payton, and now we're talking about Pete Carroll, of course, Andy Reid, and then the one that didn't win it, he ain't the worst quarterback in the division. I mean, coach in the division, and that's Jim Harbaugh. Yeah. I'm telling you, man, that's a lot. That's a lot of X's and O's stuff that you got to deal with before you even step on the field, David.
Yeah, that's a good division. I'm not a big Harbaugh guy, to be quite honest with you, but I'm not going to sit here and say he's a bad coach either. I'm just going to say I don't think he's as great as people make him out to be, but I'm not saying he's bad either, right? Then you look at the Raiders too, man. Their offensive coordinator is Chip Kelly. So if you're playing the Raiders, you got to be ready for anything. And like Chip Kelly would just throw some crazy stuff at you, and you won't see it coming. So yeah, man, the Raiders are going to be dangerous.
What's crazy is everybody's going, they're going to take Genty. If they don't, Travion Henderson is sitting right there in the second round.
Yeah, I mean, they could take Genty. They could take Genty. They absolutely could. But I just look at, like I said, I look at Tom, I look at Spytech, I look at where they came from. Look, the Buccaneers have never been a running back focused offensive squad. And look, Pete Carroll's also got it. And Pete Carroll, right? Who Pete Carroll had with his best days in Seattle? He had beast mode. So there's conflicting histories here. So maybe they do go at Genty. Either way, they're going to go offense in the first round. They're going to get weapons for that offense. That's going to help them improve that terrible time of possession they had last year. Is going to help them improve their terrible 18 points scored per game last year. And all of that is then going to trickle down economics into the Raiders defense, allow them to rest, allow them to play in good field position. And that defense is going to be one of the most improved in 2025. And people are going to sit back and go, man, oh, I'm so shocked.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah, David and I can do this all day, man, because I feel like we just got started, but we didn't. We got to stop. If y'all want to find out how much difference there is between Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, 2 guys that played for Chip Kelly at Ohio State, so that they can take Ted McMillan and still end up with one of them. All you got to do is listen to Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parsons and Coach Keith Sanchez, because they'll tell you the difference in all of those players and whether or not that's worth it. It's always worth it here on Locked On NFL on Wednesdays with my man David Harrison. David, go get him. Don't hurt nobody out there. We'll see the rest of y'all tomorrow here on Locked On NFL.